the team again returned to ancient writings and found a clue in the disasters recorded in the year 373 BC. All across the Greek islands, strange phenomena were reported. Rushing noises were heard, though there was no wind. The sea seemed to boil. Glowing lights were glimpsed on the horizon. Fishermen drew up their nets only to find their catch dead or dying. Animals showed signs of growing agitation. Swarms of mice and snakes fled the town. Dogs broke their chains and were never seen again. What followed was a massive earthquake, the worst natural disaster in recorded Greek history. The entire coastal city of Helike, near Delphi, disappeared into the Gulf of Corinth, submerged by a seismic wave. Across the island, nearly every building came tumbling down, including the Temple of Apollo. Several ancient writers, among them Aelian, drew a correlation between the strange behavior of animals and the earthquake that followed. But much like Plutarch's geographical descriptions of the gas and fissures below Delphi, the reports had been largely dismissed.
Well, this kind of scientific observation, which was part of the Greek tradition, was then also viewed as discredited and viewed with great skepticism. So there was just a general fall in the value of the stock of these ancient Greek sources that really typified all of the 20th century attitude towards the value of ancient Greek and Roman writers.
But recent investigations have revealed these ancient observers might have been right all along. Their discoveries could shed new light on the fate of the Delphic oracle. The first substantial evidence was found by chance in 1993. Oceanographers from the nearby University of Patras, conducting an environmental survey, happened to be taking temperature readings in the Corinth Gulf when a magnitude 5.4 earthquake struck.
That just before the earthquake there was a spike in the temperature of the deep water, and then a few hours later another spike, 6 degrees centigrade increase in the temperature, and then a third spike, and then the earthquake struck, and they did a sonar survey of the seafloor in the area where this probe was stationed, and they discovered a field of giant submarine pockmarks, these craters, with bubbles coming out of them. And they concluded that it looks like hot gas, hot fluids were erupting from the seafloor in the hours before the earthquake.
Dr. Stephen Sota has studied this area since the 1980s and believes this release of gas is behind what are called precursor events, just like those described by the ancient Greeks. The rushing sound could have been venting gas, the glowing lights, gas igniting from friction. The animals may have been reacting to hot gases invading their underground burrows. These theories gained support in 1995 when Sota experienced the aftermath of a 6.2 magnitude quake and was able to document some of these precursor events at first hand.
People had noticed bubbling in the seawater on both sides of the Gulf the evening before the earthquake. There were hissing noises, rushing noises like wind that a few people who were awake at 3 in the morning before the earthquake had noticed. There were lights in the sky, and there were unusual animal behavior. Most of the stories, in fact, involved that sort of thing.
One eyewitness account closely paralleled those recorded by ancient writers.
One man, for example, was driving along the old national road from the village of Rizomilos toward the Selinus River on the night before the earthquake, and he reported that every few meters on the road was a dead mouse run over by vehicles. There were dozens of them, and they were all heading in the same direction. They were crossing the road toward the mountains. So something was driving these ground-dwelling animals out of their burrows and to head for the high ground. I asked him if he knew what had happened here 24 centuries ago, what the ancient Roman writer Aelian had reported, that the same thing had happened, that the mice had abandoned this area and headed for the hills. He didn't know about this story. He was amazed to hear it.
If earthquakes are preceded by an immeasurable release of gas, it will do more than just vindicate the ancient writers.
This may provide a key for earthquake prediction. According to this theory, sometimes gas will reach the surface without triggering an earthquake, and other times gas at great depth could trigger an earthquake without reaching the surface. So there would not be a perfect one-to-one correlation between these phenomena and an earthquake, but there will be a partial correlation. And a partial correlation is better than none at all. It might be a means of giving some useful warning of earthquakes. It's somewhat like warnings of tornadoes. The prediction is not that a tornado will happen, it's that the conditions are right for a tornado and that it could happen.
One final question remains. With the major gas fluctuations confirmed during even minor quakes, what happened to the ethylene flowing under Delphi during the massive quake of 373 BC?
A channel for gas emission through a crack or fissure in the earth can be flowing for centuries, and an earthquake can then close it, block it, suddenly shut it off forever. It could be very abrupt.
Plutarch tells us that in his day the oracle had declined. He believes that the great earthquake of 373 BC had sealed up the vents that carried the pneuma, the gas, to the surface, and that it was now just diminished or being emitted somewhere else.
So perhaps it wasn't the rise of Christianity that destroyed the oracle at Delphi, but the seismic forces that actually gave birth to it. The last response of the oracle was recorded in the year 362 BC, a decade after the great earthquake.
The emissary from the emperor came here and asked the Pythia for a prophecy, and this is the last recorded one. She is said to have responded, "Go tell the king that the beautifully built temple has fallen. Apollo no longer has any shrine here, any sacred laurel tree, any talking spring. The water of speech is silent."
Although the Pythia, intoxicated by ethylene vapors, would no longer prophesy, Delphi continued to attract visitors.
Some of the first records of tourism in the whole world are from Delphi. People were coming here not to consult the oracle, but just to see the sights. And professional guides would show them around and point out this and that temple or shrine or statue and give them the story. They would hike up on a sort of a touristic route to the Corician cavern and see things there and come back down and then sit on the steps of the temple, again, not to worship or be reverent, but to have comfortable philosophical talks with friends. So it became a sort of a theme park with that ancient tradition still very important, but nonetheless overshadowed by its new role as a tourist destination.
Today, with the aid of archaeology, Apollo continues to serve as Delphi's benefactor, drawing modern pilgrims by the thousands. Like the ancient travelers before them, they will hear the ancient tales of underground fissures and mysterious gases, inspiring visions and predicting earthquakes. What began as a chance encounter between two scientific minds grew to encompass explorations into geology, archaeology, chemistry, and toxicology. After 2 centuries, science has answered the mysteries of the oracle at Delphi.
The most important thing, I think, of what we did is that we showed that an interdisciplinary approach can actually provide some surprises. What was known as a sort of dogma for as much as almost 50 years in the archaeological world, now we could prove that this was wrong and that the ancient writers were right. And I like that an awful lot.